Good evening and thank you for joining us here at GBS News 9. My name is Beatrice Njeri. Our sign language interpreter is Paul Mathenge, and together we'll be taking you through the stories making headlines tonight. But first, here are the highlights.
Walisema tusipitishe finance bill. Mimi nimewacha finance bill. Nikawaita wakanasema hawataki kuja kuzungumza na mimi. Wakaniambia niende huko kwa X. Mimi nikaenda kwa X.
Be warned, there will be no more talks, President Ruto declares as Gen Zs gear up for anti-government protest tomorrow on Tuesday. Who will flinch first?
This one you need to note it. Only 3 organizations are registered under the PPO Act 2013.
Unregistered NGOs under investigation. Directorate of Criminal Investigation keeps watch on 3 NGOs believed to be funding the anti-government protest.
Parliament resumes its sittings after the 3-week recess, so that memorandum and rejection will also be part of the business of the House.
Who will fool who? National Assembly gears up for a showdown debate over President Ruto's finance bill rejection.
At the same time, we have provided monies for sugar reforms.
The ever-rising cost of living questioned. Mudavadi before the Budget and Appropriation Committee to explain government's plan to bring down the cost of essential goods.
To begin our bulletin, President William Ruto on Sunday in Bomet County, there are named persons he has described as faceless, formless and anonymous anarchists sponsoring mayhem in the country to step forward and face him with alternatives, saying time for violent protest has come to an end. In an unexpected shift from a reconciliatory tone, the president has adopted tough stance, saying that he has already considered enough to the Gen Z's demands and will not give a chance for disruptions in the country. At the same time, Odinga has also twisted gears the dialogue on talks and demands for justice to the victims of demonstrations. Davis Karani with the details.
In his first public appearance since naming his first batch of cabinet nominees for the ministerial position on Friday, President William Ruto made his way to the church service in Sotik, Bomet County.
I want to urge all of us as a people to continue to pray for our nation, to pray for the unity of our nation, to pray for the progress, stability of our great nation, and to pray that Kenya shall continue to make strides in being a greater nation as we journey towards the future.
The president took the battle to the proponents of the recent anti-government protests.
Mimi nataka ni waombe sisi wote kama wananchi wa Kenya tusikubali, kwa sababu nchi yetu ni nchi ya demokrasia na ni nchi ya amani na ni nchi ya heshima. Na waomba wa Kenya ili tusikubali Kenya badala ya kuwa nchi ya demokrasia iwe nchi ya udikteta wa fujo na kuharibu mali na kupoteza maisha.
The head of state took a head on the Gen Z, accusing them of dodging his will to have a dialogue with them on X-Space, and even rejected the physical meeting which he had rescheduled with them but failed after the Gen Z declined the offer which he has vowed not to bow to their pressure.
Walisema tusipitishe finance bill. Mimi nimewacha finance bill. Nikawaita wakanasema hawataki kuja kuzungumza na mimi. Wakaniambia niende huko kwa X. Mimi nikaenda kwa X. Wakatoroka huko, hawakukuweko. Wakaniambia tuitishe mazungumzo. Nimeitisha mazungumzo, wamekataa. Nimewaambia wanaendelea kusema wao ni faceless, wao ni formless, sijui wako nini. Mimi nimewaambia sasa, my friends, you know, I have given a chance to everybody to say whatever they want. You know, it cannot continue like this. The country is much more important than any group of people. We must stand together as a nation, protect our nation, and make sure that Kenya is a democracy.
At the same time, the former Premier Raila Odinga has also shifted gears and changed his dancing tune from having talks and instead demands for the compensation of the victims of protests and the withdrawal of the Social Health Insurance Fund as a priority before the talks. The draft issued by Odinga appears to be a step back, contrary to his agreement on dialogue.
We agreed when we sat together, myself and Brother William Ruto, that we would follow the route of dialogue.
With the opposition taking its step back and the youth rearranging themselves for a huge countrywide demo against the government, this time round they have redirected themselves into the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and have vowed never to step back. To whom will President William Ruto offer a listening ear between Odinga and the youth? Davis Karani, GBS News, Nairobi.
As the clock ticks down on the 7-day ultimatum issued by journalists, which they argue threatens press freedom, the Kenyan government remains silent on the matter. In a recent church service in Bomet County, President William Ruto addressed the media, urging them to report responsibly and avoid glorifying anarchy. However, with the planned strike just 2 days away, the president's comments have raised more questions than answers, particularly concerning the state's definition of responsible journalism and its implications for media freedom in the country. Susan Nganga with the full report.
With the clock ticking on the 7 days ultimatum on the journalist strike, with what is termed as a threat to the press freedom, the government is yet to speak on the issue, or has it? Speaking on Sunday, when he attended a church service in Bomet County, the president warned journalists not to celebrate anarchy in their reporting, saying the press must be responsible in their coverage.
I want to request the media to report responsibly.
Without referring to any specific instances where the media has allegedly crossed the line, President Ruto said it was unfortunate that a section of the media was glorifying anarchy.
Reporting, celebrating, encouraging violence, destruction of property, anarchy, mayhem is irresponsible.
With only 2 days remaining until the planned journalist strike on Wednesday, the government has yet to directly address the matter. This raises questions about what the state defines as responsible journalism and whether this stance is being used to victimize journalists. Recent incidents have exacerbated concerns about press freedom in Kenya. On July 17, veteran journalist Macharia Gaidho was arrested and harassed.
It is true that this morning, shortly after I left home, I was intercepted by an unmarked car by people in plain clothes. They tried to pull me out of the car, but I did not know who they were. As far as I knew, they could have been criminals.
This followed the shooting and injury of Media Max journalist Catherine Wanjeri in Nakuru and the tear gassing of journalists during protest. Press freedom in Kenya faces serious threats, highlighted by the country's drop in the 2023 Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index from 69 to 116 out of 180 countries. This decline is attributed to increased harassments of journalists, particularly since last year's election, and rise in police brutality during public protest. Susan Nganga, GBS News.
The Public Benefit Regulatory Authority, formerly the NGOs Coordination Board, has identified several non-governmental organizations operating without proper registration in Kenya and has today forwarded their names to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations for further scrutiny into their activities after widespread allegations of funding protest. Speaking in Nairobi, the authority chairperson Mwambu Mangoga alleged that the organizations are running unauthorized bank accounts and implementing projects that cannot be justified after receiving funds that they cannot account for. Here is more on the same.
Mimi nataka niulize watu wa Ford Foundation watuambie hiyo pesa wanatoa ifanye fujo ndio wapate faida gani?
Following the recent allegations made by President William Ruto on local organizations being funded to fund the recent nationwide protests, the Public Benefit Organization Regulatory Authority has forwarded names of 3 non-governmental organizations operating in Kenya and are also getting funding from Ford Foundation to the DCI for further investigations.
The authority has further forwarded to the DCI for the further investigations of the said organizations, PPOs that are currently in operation without probably obtaining the requisite registrations, and yet the PPO in question are receiving money or funding that they may not be able to account for. Maybe running accounts that have not been authorized and implementing projects that cannot be quantified or accounted for.
On 18th of July this year, the government of Kenya listed 16 NGOs in connection to the protests that wreaked havoc in the country in the last month. Through a letter addressed to Ford Foundation President Darren Walker, the Principal Secretary for Foreign Affairs Korir Sing'oei said some of the organizations funded by Ford Foundation have been at the center of the anti-government protests. According to Mr. Mabonga, who is the chairperson of the authority, organizations engaging in public benefit in Kenya are required to either obtain public benefit status as provided for under Section 7 or register with the authority under Section 10 and 11 of the PBOs Act. On the contrary, out of the 16 organizations mentioned by the PS, 13 are not registered under the Act.
Only 3, and this one you need to note it, only 3 organizations are registered under the PPO Act 2013, whereas the rest of the other listed organizations are registered by both the Registrar of Societies and Companies.
To their defense against the allegations, Ford Foundation denied funding the anti-government protests in Kenya and asked the Kenyan government to check their foundation's website for information about its grants to organizations in Kenya. Hilary Kabila, GBS News, Nairobi.
Over the weekend, the President of Kenya took a bold stance addressing various issues with a fervent "enough is enough" theme. He was unapologetic in his critique, particularly targeting the Gen Z population, declaring he has done enough already. However, conspicuously absent from his impassioned speeches were any remarks on the ongoing extrajudicial killings and police brutality witnessed during the recent anti-government protest. Despite his previous assertion that one life lost is one too many, over 50 lives have been lost allegedly due to police brutality. Reports of bodies found in quarries and claims of police kidnappings underscore a grim reality that the president has yet to condemn, choosing instead to commend the police for their actions. Here are the details.
The president was really vocal on the weekend, calling out everybody and anybody who in his terms was needed to be called out, including the formless and faceless Gen Zs.
I want to promise you it's going to stop. Enough is enough. Ama mnasemaje? Si imetosha hii maneno? Walisema tusipitishe finance bill. Mimi nimewacha finance bill. Nikawaita wakanasema hawataki kuja kuzungumza na mimi. Wakaniambia niende huko kwa X. Mimi nikaenda kwa X. Wakatoroka huko hawakukuweko. Wakaniambia tuitishe mazungumzo. Nimeitisha mazungumzo, wamekataa. Nimewaambia wanaendelea kusema wao ni faceless, wao ni formless, sijui wako nini. Mimi nimewaambia sasa, my friends, you know, I have given a chance to everybody to say whatever they want. You know, it cannot continue like this.
But one thing the president seems keen not to speak about is the extrajudicial killings in the country and police brutality during the anti-government protest. The president once said,
for the avoidance of doubt, there will be no extrajudicial killings in the government of Kenya under my administration. Yeah, that is a chapter we must close and weld and bold and put it behind us.
However, so far over 50 lives have been lost, which is linked to the alleged police brutality witnessed. Bodies have been found in quarries, allegedly from the Githurai massacre, and some claiming that police kidnapped their kin. But instead of the head of state condemning it, he is heard patting the police on the back for how they are continuing handling the protest.
Thank our security officers who were on duty today for applying themselves to the best of their abilities in the defense of Kenya and its people.
What seems to be ironical in all this, even international agencies have called out the police brutality in the country, which the president in multiple occasions denies it. The U.S. Embassy, in a statement issued on July 18, urged police to exercise restraint while executing their mandate. The church have also called for an end to the extrajudicial killings and state abductions against innocent Kenyans, demanding accountability and good governance.
We demand an end to extrajudicial killing and use of excessive force against peaceful protesters.
The president has also promised to put an end to the protest.
Protect life. We will protect property. We will stop the looters. We will stop the killers. We will stop mayhem. We will stop anarchy, because Kenya is a democracy and we want a peaceful, stable nation.
But the last time he did this, he became the first president in the history of Kenya to deploy the military to deal with the protesters. The legal community in Kenya, led by the Law Society of Kenya under the leadership of President Faith Odhiambo, is actively pursuing legal avenues to address police brutality during protest, including potential filing of a case at the International Criminal Court. As the nation braces for the scheduled protest on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the public remains watchful of how the president will address these critical issues and fulfill his promise to end the unrest. Susan Nganga, GBS News.
Many thanks for joining this live broadcast. We have a lot lined up for you in a new segment tonight. But first, let us take a quick break. We'll be right back with even more.
Leo tutakuwa tunaangazia masuala mengi kuhusu uongozi na maendeleo, na pia tutakuwa tunaangalia uongozi wa kuigwa na vijana. Kuna idara za serikali, kuna tume ya EACC, kuna idara za mahakama na kuna parliament, lakini tumeshindwa kutekeleza chapter 6 of Kenyan Constitution to the point that kwamba watoto wachanga ndio wanatuonyesha jinsi ya ndio wanatuweka katika mistari sabamba ya kuratibisha kifungu cha 6 cha katiba ya Kenya.
When we try tukijaribu sana kuangalia mambo politically na tuangalie vizuri pande hii nyingine ya kijamii, nafikiri hapo kuna kuwa na mwanya katikati, na hiyo mwanya ndiyo ambayo sasa imekuja kujazwa na hii generation.
What has this far that now they are saying enough is enough.
Wakati Daktari William Samoei Ruto alichukua hatamu za uongozi, mnakumbuka ya kwamba the opposition walianza zile demonstrations zao za kusema the cost of living imeenda juu sana. Ijaribu kushukishwa kidogo, ili watu wakuwe na muamana katika nchi. Na hiyo pia iliadhiri serikali yake pakubwa.
Sababu ya watu kwenda kwa maandamano ilikuwa kutoridhika na mambo yanavyofanywa. Wakati finance bill ilipitishwa na wakati tunaangalia sababu ya zenyewe kupitishwa, tunaona si sababu za kusaidia vijana.
What happened after the Kenya Kwanza imereduce still? Wanamwandamania.
So ile ambayo wananchi wa Kenya wanakasirika ni kwa sababu we are expecting leaders, and especially led by the president, to be giving us policies that can give effect to Article 43 of the Kenyan Constitution.
Everywhere, GBS.
How is it for you as a parent? Are you having an adolescent? How is parenting for you?
But again, we have to be fair, firm, and friendly. We cannot parent without being friendly to these children. Peer pressure not to be pure. Where the adolescents, they have a slogan, Mavajuni Fara. Parent, you have to be hot, raw, real, and nice.
How do we help our children to understand we are not from the West and we can never be the West? The reason as to why I'm bringing this out is because
we have to understand the trends. Because they tend to trade with what is trading. We have to be able to understand and tell our children, just because it is trading doesn't make it a trade.
But let's continue this conversation online across all our social media networks. That's GBS TV Africa. Our SMS line is 21144.
Welcome back. You are still watching GBS News 9. President William Ruto's refusal to sign the Finance Bill 2024 will be a key agenda when the National Assembly reconvenes this week following a 3-week recess, according to Speaker Moses Wetangula. Ruto declared on the 26th of June the decision to withhold his approval of the contentious bill in light of fatal protests, opting instead to return it to Parliament along with a memorandum calling for the withdrawal of all its clauses. Here is more on the same.
The members of Parliament who will be resuming recess on Tuesday will prioritize the memorandum on the Finance Bill 2024 issued by President William Ruto when he declined to assent to the bill. Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, stated in a press address today.
Parliament resumes its sittings after the 3-week recess. As you are aware, the President declined to assent to the Finance Bill 2024 and sent back with a memorandum indicating that he had rejected all the clauses of the bill. So that memorandum and rejection will also be part of the business of the House. Remember that under our standing orders, when the President sends a memorandum of that nature,
Wetangula has clarified that for the President's decision to take effect, 2/3 of the members of Parliament must vote in favour of withdrawing the bill in the upcoming vote. He also dismissed claims that the bill would become operational within 2 weeks of its rejection, emphasizing that this timeline does not overlap with the members of Parliament recess.
Any member who wants to overturn that memorandum or any provision therein must garner 2/3 of the members of the House. That's about 233 or thereabouts of members. So we will be placing the memorandum before the House. This also addresses the issue that I've seen in the media, that the bill was going to be operational within 14 days of the rejection of the memorandum. That is not true, and we have no provision in law or under the Constitution for that.
Additionally, the Speaker highlighted that the selection panel for appointing new Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission commissioners will be formed within 14 days.
Siaya Governor James Orengo is urging the nation to prioritize justice for victims of police brutality over forming a broad-based government. He argues that political ambitions should not overshadow the need to strengthen democratic institutions to safeguard Kenyans' rights. Meanwhile, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has called for calm and understanding among the youth, urging them to allow the government space to address their concerns. Here is Tabitha Nyarinda with more.
I want to say thank you.
Speaking to the media after attending the funeral of a former nominated MCA Pamela Odeningure in Rarieda, Orengo emphasized the need for justice for families affected by the recent protests, saying prioritizing their plight is important over political maneuvering for positions.
I think the first business that should have been considered in order to give us a pathway towards a resolution of the national problem and have a proper perspective about what must be done was to resolve issues of injustice. I remember when we were doing the Serena talks, the first business is how to end the violence and how to deal with the issues of injustice, those who are in court, those who are arrested, those who are charged, to create an enabling environment. It'd be foolhardy for people to be seen to be overly enthusiastic about getting into offices without a fundamental consideration of a different agenda, a different manifestos. And it's making the young people look like, all the political class are just looking for jobs. In fact, one of the problems that the young people have with us as political class is that we are opportunistic.
Orengo maintained his earlier stance that working with President William Ruto may prove impossible, highlighting that Azimio leader Raila Odinga is the one who can transform this country and should therefore not join forces with the Kenya Kwanza administration, stating that by joining President Ruto without preconditions, ODM party and its leadership may be perceived to have given up in its long-time quest to transform this country.
In my view, we need an intervention in which Ruto as president cannot be the determinant of the resolution. Have the reason changed why we want Raila Amolo Odinga to be president as opposed to Ruto? Are we saying that now we're prepared for Ruto to rule us until 2032? Those are issues we must put on the table. I may believe that Raila Amolo Odinga is still the person who can change and reform this country. But by acceding to Ruto without preconditions, you may find that a lot of people will think that we have given up and Ruto is president until 2032. We had said that we are not ready to be part of Ruto's government. That was read out.
Meanwhile, speaking in Mwea while attending the consecration service at the Pefa Church, Kirinyaga region, Bishop Samuel Arimi and ordination of 33 church ministers at Mwea Pefa Cathedral, Gachagua urged the youths to call off the protest as it is now being hijacked by some individuals with selfish benefits, breaking the law. He called upon Kenyans to be optimistic as they continue to make changes.
My children, my sons and daughters, we have heard you. You have spoken clearly. What you have said needs no full stop or comma. It's clear. Lakini sasa mkitoka wakora wana hijack mambo yetu. Wezi wanaanza kuiba mali ya watu, si ndio? So we want to ask the Gen Z, you have spoken, we have heard you. Please don't allow your protest to be hijacked.
Dorcas Rigathi, who attended the event, asked the church to be courageous as the church and government serve the same people.
Be courageous. That's what we have been taught. And what we say is that the church and the government, we serve the same people. We serve the men and the women, and we also pass on the roads.
Elsewhere, the Kenya National Union of Teachers, NAT, has challenged the Cabinet Secretary for Education appointee, Julius Migos Ogamba, to be consultative and inclusive if he expects to succeed in his role effectively. NAT Secretary General Collins Oyu stressed that leadership in the education sector requires extensive consultation with stakeholders to achieve success. Speaking at Nyasanda Primary School grounds in Ugunjo Sub-County, Siaya, during the Siaya NAT Branch Annual General Meeting, Oyu expressed gratitude to the President for the appointment, expressing hope that the appointee will steer the sector to have a turnaround and make a difference.
I know, and every other person knows, education sector is not a walk in the park. It is difficult. We've seen CSs, ministers come and go. So I would wish to thank the President for the new appointments, but I would wish to call upon whoever is appointed to man the sector of education to have a turnaround and make a difference. Because we are there, our eyes are there, the parents' eyes are there, the learners are there. This is a sector that is run in a three-way traffic. And be very, very consultative. Time and again, consult, and consult. And nobody should think that he can run this sector alone. All stakeholders in this sector must be brought together.
Addressing the occasion, Siaya Governor James Orengo stated that TSE as a constitutional body needs to emulate what other commissions such as the judiciary are doing by having at least one commissioner representing those in active employment or service.
Walimu have always been praying ya kwamba we should have a constitutionalized Teachers Service Commission. A constitutionalized Teachers Service Commission. Na nilikuwa nikisema ya kwamba, you know, if you go to the Judicial Service Commission, even practicing lawyers are in that the Judicial Service Commission. Ukienda Parliamentary Service Commission, hata wabunge wako pale katika Parliamentary Service Commission. So I'm looking for a day, and if we work together, that we should have a Teachers Service Commission in which the membership is determined and elected by teachers.
These efforts could have significant implications for the education sector. Tabitha Nyarinda, GBS News.
On Wednesday, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi appeared before the National Assembly to answer questions regarding the steps being taken to reduce the cost of essential goods and fuel, aid, and to address the decline of Kenyan shillings against other currencies. It was revealed during his appearance at the Budget Committee that expenditure cuts are necessary at all levels of government to address the budget hole following the rejection of the Finance Bill. Members of Parliament who are among the losers have agreed to accept the reality, having the reduction on CDF despite being so dear to them. During the session, the Prime Cabinet Secretary addressed queries related to the provision and distribution of relief food in areas experiencing severe drought and famine, as raised by Honorable Yusuf Hassan, Member of Parliament. Mudavadi gave insight into the government's efforts to tackle the current economic difficulties facing the country. Mudavadi acknowledged that the country was in tight situation, hence the need for radical measures. The Prime Cabinet Secretary at the same time stated that the ongoing demonstrations in the country are posing serious risk to the economic activities. He noted that this has affected the collection of revenue and caused negative impacts on tourism as well as business disruption on businesses.
Parliament for Rehab Mokami, County MP Nyeri, member of this committee.
Members, we passed a budget of over 4 trillion shillings. We have had now to relook at what we need to do now. because the budget we passed just shy of 4 trillion. It was 4.992 trillion. We had hoped that after passing the expenditure side of the budget, then the budget will be funded. But the Kenyan people told us we need to do something, our things differently. And therefore, we then had to make an arrangement where our revenue side of the budget matches with the expenditure side. Because the revenue raising measures, if they are not there, then it means even the expenditure cannot continue to exist as it was. Therefore, what we are doing is two-way, and will be enumerated better by the National Treasury. It is to borrow slightly more. We had a budget then with a fiscal deficit of 3.83%. Currently, we are now having one before us, which is around 4.2 to 4.3% deficit to GDP ratio. It means we are borrowing slightly more. On the other hand, we have had now to look at ourselves internally and inward, and therefore look at expenditure that we can postpone and others that we could cancel, so that we are able to live in a manner that matches the revenue that we expect. And in that respect then, we have been holding, Your Excellency, meetings with the departmental committees. All of them, without exemption, have had budget cuts. And all of them, I want to appreciate all the members of parliament through the departmental committees that they are members in, that we have decided, all of us, that these times are different, and therefore we need to think differently. And for the first time, Your Excellency, in my terms in service of Kenyans as an MP, I've never had any other chance where CDF is being cut and there seems to be no one complaining about it. This is the first time I have seen. And we are doing that because we know where we are, and we really need to look at our financials and live within our means.
Mr. Chairman, the Kenyan economy is currently unwinding from the effects of negative and persistent global domestic shocks that have pushed the economy to its lowest activity level. The shocks included COVID-19 pandemic and effects of climate change, from the prolonged drought in 2021 to the floods in 2024. These shocks escalated the cost of essential household commodities. They also pushed up fuel prices and led to a rapid depreciation of the Kenya shilling exchange rate, thus piling pressure on public debt. Mr. Chairman, through focused policy interventions and structural reforms, the government efforts have started to yield some positive results. The economy grew by 5.6% in 2023, up from 4.9% in 2022, a demonstration of resilience and the sustenance of economic recovery. This growth momentum has continued into 2024, with the economy expanding by 5% in the first quarter, and it is projected to grow by 5.5% by the end of the year.
The streets of Haiti witnessed a scene of a fierce gun battle as Kenyan police officers, part of the multinational security support mission, clashed with armed gangs. The officers, equipped with heavy armored vehicles, patrolled the deserted streets of Port-au-Prince in an attempt to restore peace and order in the conflict-ridden Caribbean nation. Here is that report.
As the convoy of armored vehicles rolled down the empty street, tensions were high. Suddenly, a gunfight erupted, sending shots ringing through the air. The Kenyan officers, alongside their Haitian counterparts, were quick to respond, taking cover and returning fire at the armed gangs who had been causing chaos in that area.
Despite the intense exchange of fire, the Kenyan officers, with the support of the Haitian police, managed to gain control of the port that had been under the control of the gangs for months. The exchange of gunfights in Haiti may have been intense, but the resolve of the Kenyan officers to bring peace to the troubled nation is unwavering.
Do keep your comments coming in through our SMS line 21144 and GBS TV Africa on all our social media handles. That report brings us to our international news, but first let us take a quick commercial break.
In the Bible, it says no flesh shall be justified in his sight by the deeds of the law. Today, many people on Sunday, there are so many people who go to church out of formality and to keep these laws. Why did God send Jesus? Because all of the curse that we were supposed to receive, for Jesus to receive it in our stead. Truly to be saved, is it to do good things or to keep the Ten Commandments? No, it is so far from it. We are people who have already disobeyed it. God did not give the Ten Commandments so that you can be blessed and keep all of them.
Wanasema afadhali nililie kwa Range Rover na nicheke kwa baiskeli.
Hiyo sasa. So ukisikiza wengine anakuanga ni uongo. Wanataka kukuonyesha ni pia pressure. Mimi siwezi amka akikuja late, siwezi amka nimpatie chakula, siwezi fanya.
That is a friend of mine. Aliniambia yeye bwana yake ni mtu wa kununa. Ana jam sometimes sijui anaweza maybe ameboeka huko kazini akikuja kwa nyumba amejam tu.
Mtu hata labda akulangi kama huyo mzee ajaingia kwa hiyo nyumba. Labda akulangi ama akisikia tu mlango ndio imeguzwa ako chini.
Hapo kutuitiwa unapelekwa mahali unaanza kuchapa mahesabu yako. Hii pesa ingelipa school fees. Tungenunua vitu zingine tuongezee kwa nyumba.
Then naturally hawajaumbwa watu wa kupayuka si kama sisi. Na the more unakaa na mtu unakaa ukijua this person akiwa real ama akiwa na pressure fulani. Bwanake mali ameajiriwa kazi, boss wake ni sugar mami wake. Alafu
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back to the broadcast, and now to matters international news. President Samia Suluhu Hassan of Tanzania has initiated a significant overhaul of her cabinet, dismissing 3 ministers and appointing new faces in a strategic reshuffle aimed at strengthening governance and administrative efficiency. The changes announced by Chief Secretary Ambassador Dr. Moses Kusuluka reflected President Samia's commitment to advancing key sectors and reinforcing Tanzania's leadership within the East African region. Here are the details.
The Chief Secretary Ambassador Dr. Moses Kusuluka announced on Sunday that President Samia Suluhu Hassan appointed Jerry Silaa as the new Minister for Information, Communication and Information Technology, succeeding Nape Nnauye, who was relieved of his duties. Deogratias Ndejebi, who previously served as Minister of State in the Prime Minister's office, focusing on labor, employment, youth and persons with disability, was appointed as Minister of Lands, Housing and Human Settlements Development. Rithiwani Kikwete assumed a new role as Minister of State in the Prime Minister's office, following his tenure as Deputy Minister of State in the President's office, overseeing public service management and good governance. Ambassador Mahmoud Kombo, formerly Tanzania's ambassador to Italy, assumes the dual role of Member of Parliament and Minister of Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation, succeeding January Makamba. Furthermore, President Samia Suluhu Hassan appointed Kosato Chumi as the new Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation, replacing Ambassador Mbaruk Nassor Mbaruk. Deus Sangu rounds out the new appointments as the Deputy Minister of State in the President's office, focusing on public service management and good governance. As well, Dennis Londo has been appointed as the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation, assuming direct responsibility for East African Cooperation affairs following the departure of Stephen Biabato.
Tunisian President Kais Saied announced he will run for re-election in October, despite concerns from the opposition that fair elections could not be held with many potential candidates imprisoned on what their lawyers call politically motivated charges. In a video message, the 66-year-old Saied declared his candidacy for the October 6th presidential elections, stating he was answering the country's sacred call, which left him no choice but to run for a second term. Saied has ruled by decree since suspending parliament in July 2021, 2 years after his initial election victory. Here is more on the same.
Tunisian President Kais Saied, who grabbed wide-ranging powers 2 years after his 2019 election, announced on Friday he will seek a new 5-year term in an election set for October. Speaking from the southern region of Tutain, the 66-year-old stated he was answering the country's sacred call, which left him no choice but to run for a second term.
I don't belong to any political party. I am nobody's candidate. I'm independent, and that's how I plan to stay.
Several potential challengers who had announced their candidacy are either in prison or being prosecuted. In his announcement, Saied called on everyone preparing to sponsor candidates to steer off any corruption. Latifi Muraihi, the head of the opposition Republican Union Party, received an 8-month sentence earlier on Friday on the charge of vote buying and a lifetime ban on running for president.
A global outage affected approximately 8.5 million window devices, rattled businesses and individuals worldwide following a corrupted update issued by cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike. The incident, spanning from Thursday into Friday, disrupted essential services, grounded flights, prompting worrying from cybersecurity experts about potential hacking attempts amidst the chaos. Let's listen to the report.
The glitch was caused by a corrupted update issued by security company CrowdStrike, which caused havoc worldwide from Thursday into Friday. Tech giant Microsoft said on Saturday that around 8.5 million computers and devices around the world using Windows were affected by the recent global IT outage. The faulty update triggered system malfunctions that severely disrupted daily operations for businesses and individuals. The ripple effects were substantial, leading to the grounding of thousands of flights, disrupting broadcasts, and denying access to essential services such as healthcare and banking for customers worldwide. In response to the situation, the National Cybersecurity Center urged vigilance against potential phishing attempts, while Germany's IT security agency warned of cybercriminals exploiting the chaos through fake websites and online scams. CrowdStrike issued an apology for the disruption and assured affected customers of ongoing assistance. As of Sunday, the company reported that a fix had been deployed to mitigate the issue.
Israeli fighter jets conducted airstrikes on Yemen's port city of Hodeidah on Saturday, marking Israel's first military action in Yemen. This retaliation followed a drone attack by Iranian-backed Houthi rebels that struck Tel Aviv the previous day, resulting in 1 fatality and multiple injuries. Reports indicate that at least 3 people were killed and 87 wounded in Israeli airstrikes, which ignited a significant fire at the port and caused widespread power outages. Here are the details.
A Houthi spokesperson, Brigadier General Yassareh, has slammed what he called the blatant aggression by Israel and stated Yemen armed forces would retaliate. He said the attack targeted the power station that supplies electricity, as well as the port and fuel tanks, all which are civilians' targets.
The armed forces restate their full right to defend Yemen from American and British aggression, as well as Israeli aggression, which won't deter us from standing against injustice towards the Palestinians.
A media outlet controlled by the Houthi rebels, Al Masira TV, said there was a large fire at the port and that power cuts were widespread. Meanwhile, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in a televised address on Saturday night, described Hodeidah as an entry point for weapons from Iran.
Anyone who wants a stable Middle East should stand against Iran's axis of evil and support our struggle against its malignant offshoots in Yemen, Gaza, Lebanon, everywhere.
Netanyahu said his country would defend itself by all means, and that Saturday attack showed Israel enemies there was no place it could reach. The airstrike was the first direct attack on Yemen since Houthi rebels began targeting Israel last year with drones and missiles in response to the war in Gaza. There are fears that the airstrike will open a new front in the region as Israel battles against proxies of Iran, including Hezbollah in Lebanon and scattered military groups in Syria.
At least 6 people were injured and several arrested on Saturday in La Rochelle, France, as riot police used tear gas and water cannons to disperse a demonstration against the use of large-scale agricultural water reservoirs known as mega basins. The clashes occurred after some protesters began smashing shop windows and setting properties ablaze during the otherwise peaceful rally, which drew around 4,000 participants. Here is more on the same.
Rochelle, France, chaos erupted during a protest against large-scale agricultural reservoirs, leaving 6 injured, including 5 demonstrators and a police officer.
We're asking agro-industry to stop everything that goes against living
to
things.
disperse around 4,000 protesters after violence broke out, with some demonstrators smashing shop fronts and setting fires. Footage captured law enforcement in full gear, confronting the crowd, while several protesters retreated, burning trash bins. French Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin tweeted on X that a number of left-wing participants, who he termed as radical, had attacked a property and rampaged a supermarket. Hence, it is hard to see a link to the defense of the environment. Authorities arrested at least 7 individuals amid rising tensions over water scarcity and the controversial Mega Basins project, which critics argue benefits large farms at the expense of smaller producers and the environment.
And now for sports lovers, it is time for your most anticipated part of the news, the sports news. Let's get sporty. Joshua Kithuku and Naomi Chebet were crowned winners of the Uasin Gishu Half Marathon held in Eldoret town. Joshua Kithuku won the men's race in 1 hour and 37 seconds. Meanwhile, Naomi Chebet emerged as the winner of the women's race in 1 hour 10 minutes. Naomi Chebet and Joshua Kithuku emerged as the winners of the 2024 Uasin Gishu Half Marathon held in Eldoret town. World Athletics Championship 10,000 meters silver winner Daniel Simiyu, who is set to run in this year's Chicago Marathon, came in second. Chebet and Kithuku will take home 300,000 Kenya shillings, while the second runners-up will receive 200,000 Kenyan shillings. Third place finishers will receive 100,000 Kenya shillings respectively. Fourth and fifth place finishers will be awarded 50,000 Kenya shillings and 40,000 Kenya shillings respectively. Runners who wound up in 6th and 10th positions were also rewarded each 20,000 Kenya shillings reward. Race sponsors, gaming firm Betika, were ecstatic on the holding of the race, which they believed helped expose talents. The race attracted over 700 local and international athletes. Oscar Piastri took his maiden Grand Prix victory in McLaren, 1 of 2 ahead of Lando Norris in a dramatic race in Hungary amid a heated row over the team orders. Lewis Hamilton, who finished third and takes his achievement to 200 podiums in Formula 1. Here are the details.
Oscar Piastri took the lead at the start as he launched off the line better than Lando Norris. Piastri led Norris for most of the race after taking the lead in a 3-car fight between them and Max Verstappen. But an earlier final pit stop for Norris, made by McLaren to protect him against Hamilton's Mercedes, which had stopped earlier, put him ahead of Piastri. Lando Norris was repeatedly asked to slow down and let Piastri pass, but he refused to do so until just 2 laps from the end. McLaren's team orders controversy unfolded as they tried to manage their way to a 1-2 finish, their first since the 2021 Italian Grand Prix. Behind them, old rivals Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen collided as they disputed third place. Both continued, but Hamilton held on to third and the Red Bull driver dropped back to finish 5th behind Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. In the Constructors' Championship, McLaren are inching closer to leaders Red Bull with a 1-2 finish in Hungary. Red Bull leads with 389 points. McLaren is second with 338 points. Ferrari is third with 322 points. Mercedes is fourth with 241 points, while Aston Martin is fifth with 69 points. In the Drivers' Championship, Lando Norris has cut Max Verstappen lead at the top to 76 points, following his second place at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen leads the Drivers' Championship with 265 points. Lando Norris is second with 189 points. Charles Leclerc is third with 162 points. Carlos Sainz is fourth with 154 points. Oscar Piastri is fifth with 149 points. Lewis Hamilton is sixth with 125 points. Sergio Perez is seventh with 124 points, while George Russell is eighth with 116 points. Reporting for GBS TV, I am John Kinyanjui.
And that sports news brings us to the end of our news segment tonight. Here at GBS News 9, we make your news our business. My name is Beatrice Njeri. Our sign language interpreter is Paul Mathenge. Good night.